Hey everybody, it's Comedex and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we've got the workshop event, The First Step. So the workshop events, for those who don't know, are completely free, small events that'll give you a little reward for your first win. In basically every workshop event, you play with a few different pre-constructed decks against each other, and everyone is using these pre-constructed decks, so it's an even playing field. It gives you a chance to play with these decks that they've set up without needing all of the cards in your own collection. And they're pretty neat little events. So this one is going to be based around some of the new Ikoria cards. So this is your chance to play with some of the new mechanics without having to necessarily acquire any of the new cards yet. So it gives you a chance to try out Mutate and cycling theme decks. So the Mutate deck is a Soul Tie deck that's black, green, and blue. It's got several Mutate cards as well as cards that benefit off of you using the Mutate ability multiple times. Cards like Mysterious Egg that gets counters every time you mutate. The Gnar creates beasts every time you mutate. A bunch of good stuff like that. Just a good value-based, kind of slower deck over here. And then the cycling deck, Vicious Cycle, is a much more aggressive Boros cycling deck, so it's got a lot of cards that are really good on curve. 2 mana for 3 power, and you create 1/1s every time you cycle. A bunch of cards that do damage, create 1/1s, just do good things while you're cycling cards. So this deck, you can really just dump out your creatures very early and then just start cycling to amass a whole lot of value and damage very quickly. So this is the really aggressive deck, and the Mutate deck is a little more trying to take over the game with larger, beefier creatures, larger card advantage swings later on, whereas this deck just brings out the damage very quickly. So, for this event, I think I'm going to go with the Mutate deck. I did just talk up the cycling deck a whole lot, but while I do think that it might be the better deck overall just because it's very fast by the looks of it, I think that the Mutate deck will be a little more interesting, a little more fun, something that I haven't played with as much. Certainly in the preview event, I did end up playing a lot of aggressive decks. When I tried to play seriously, I played Red-Black Sacrifice, and then Jeskai aggressive cycling type stuff. So I've played with the cycling a little bit more than I've played with Mutate so far in this set, so I'm going to give Mutate a shot here. And this hand's a little awkward. We only have 2 mana, but we have Adventurous Impulse to grab a 3rd land off the top, which will get us to 1 land away from casting a Great Horn. And then if we cast a Great Horn and start mutating other things onto it, we can start getting multiple lands off its ability. So I think this is a keep, because we're basically 1 land away from being able to cast everything. Because they'll have to kill 2 of our Great Horns to stop us from getting lands off their Mutate. I'm going to drop a Boot Nipper with Death Touch just in case they make something large. Lifelink might actually be better in the matchup most of the time. And luckily, because of that Boot Nipper that we drew, we get to mutate right now and grab a land. We don't even have to cast our Adventurous Impulse. So yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Lifelink will probably almost always be better in this specific event. But we'll see, they might have the 4/4. In the late game here. This mutates each opponent discards a card, so we could just try to just keep stacking mutate triggers onto this card and going crazy that way. I'm gonna get a little bold here and try to Adventurous Impulse for an untapped land and then Cavern Whisper. If I fail, I can just mutate one of the cheaper mutates. That is a tapped land, so I did fail. Trumpeting Gnar, I could really create a lot of tokens and get a lot of value there, but I think I'm just going to do a Great Horn this turn and try to cast Kogla next turn, so I'm going to grab the land. And actually, if I grab the land, I could just go for this one instead. drain some life from our opponent. Because every time you mutate, you get the trigger from all the different creatures mutating. So when I mutate this Hemophage on, I get Great Horn's trigger, which is when it mutates, get a basic land, and I get Hemophage's trigger to drain them some life. So I have my 6 lands for my Titan Ape. And there's Yadaro, the largest card in our opponent's deck. It has cycling for 1 and a red, but if you cycle it, you shuffle it back into your library. If you've cycled it 4 times in one game, you get to instead just put it into play as an 8/8 Trample Haste, which is very cool, very fun for sure. We drew a Lead the Stampede here, a really cool card that gives you a lot of creatures from your top 5. However, I'm just going to drop the Titan Ape and see what they do about it. They definitely don't have counterspells in that deck, but they could have burn, they could have instant speed, cycling triggers to try to make a bunch of chump blockers and stuff like that. They did get to cycle Yadaro a second time, so they're 2 cycles away from Yadaro hitting the board. Of course, the alternate art version of Yadaro is a very cool looking Godzilla card. Unfortunately, they do have Fire Prophecy for an additional 3 damage to the Titan Ape. So he is gone forever. They choose not to chump block with the 1/1. Gonna save it on the board for now. Snare Tactician from our opponent, so now whenever they cycle they get to tap one of our creatures. And they can of course cycle during our turn, so they can cycle before we go to combat to make sure we can't attack with our Great Horn. That's something I really like to see. I'm actually going to lead the Stampede here before combat in case I draw some kind of mutate card that I really want to play before I go into combat. Oh wow. And you get to choose any number of cards that you see off Lead the Stampede, so I'm just going to draw all 4 of these. Seems good. These cost 5 mana to mutate, unfortunately. Cavern Whisperer does only cost 4 to mutate, so I could just play Whisperer, and then next turn I'll probably make a Mysterious Egg and a Trumpeting Gnar onto the egg. But for now, let's make our 3/4 a 4/4 with Menace, and get our opponent to discard a card. And drain them life and grab a land. Mutate does very much stack. So yeah, the Mutate deck is really the deck that's all about snowballing value over the course of a long game. If they can't deal with your creature that just has a stack of Mutate triggers on it, you're just going to create an overwhelming amount of triggers. But it does take time to set that up, and if they can kill you before you do get it set up, then you'll obviously not be able to do much with it. The other thing about it is, all they have to do is kill this one creature to kill, you know, everything that I've spent on this. Alright, so we will definitely play a Mysterious Egg here and start making a stack there. Fortunately, this actually kind of sucks against the cycling deck, because they can just keep making 1/1s. So I think I'm going to go with the one that makes 5/5s, or that makes 3/3s first. And our 4/4 does have Menace, so they can't block with Winota there. A little scared about Winota, but I think overall we're definitely in a good spot. They're down to 7. We've got some Mutate shenanigans set up. We have a 4/4 Menace Death Touch, so they have to double block it, and I get to kill both creatures that block it. Winota could always drop something crazy off of the attack trigger. Oh wait, she only triggers whenever a non-human you control attacks? Weird card. Okay, whenever a non-human they control attacks, they get to look at the top 6 and put a human onto the battlefield. So they're just going to send in... I guess I'll block the 1/1. I'm not going to block Winota. They're down to 7 life. I think I'm very unlikely to die here. And if I just save all of my creatures, pretty likely to be able to set up a lethal attack, especially with these guys to make them sack a creature. And there is the concession from our opponent. So the Mutate deck does take it in the first game. And that is going to grab us the Haversack of Favor, which gives us 500 gold. The Haversack of Favor, for those who don't know, is a random reward. It'll give you 500 gold or 500 experience or a random rare or mythic card. I believe those are the 3 options that the Haversack will give you. So that's basically the whole event there for anybody who is going on to Arena and just wants to see what the event is. That's what it is. As soon as you get a win, you get that thing. You can play as much as you want completely for free, so just if you want to really get a grasp on a lot of the new Ikoria mechanics, this is a great event for that. But yeah, I mean, that's that's all it's going to be for me, because I am very much a drafter, and I'm going to hop into a lot of drafts. So I'll be playing with these mechanics plenty. So I'm just in it for that Haversack of Favor. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you again next time.